This is Steve. Welcome to another episode of The Art Box. First, a word from this week's sponsor.
Have you been to Juniper Outpost? No? Well, let me introduce you to what might just be the most perfect shopping experience in Mesquite, Nevada. Juniper Outpost is without a doubt the most unique store here in this amazing little town. You will find over 30 local artists' creations, clothing, jewelry, health and beauty, as well as food and pantry items. It is your local artisan store with endless gift-giving opportunities. Please take some time to stop in and say hello. We're located at 312 West Mesquite Boulevard, Suite 114, Mesquite, Nevada.
Welcome to The Art Box, your podcast dedicated to exploring the vibrant art scene in Nevada and beyond. Join us as we embark on a journey through galleries, theaters, studios, public lands, and streetscapes, meeting the artists, curators, archaeologists, nature lovers, and cultural influencers who shape our creative community and our world. Whether you're looking for your next cultural adventure, seeking inspiration for your own artistic pursuits, or simply curious about the world of art, tune into The Art Box. Together, let's open up a world of creativity and imagination. Let's dive in.
I'm an arts educator and a visual artist based in Reno, Nevada. I hold a Bachelor in Arts and Painting from Arts University of Tehran and an MFA from the University of Nevada, Reno. I also work as an art studying specialist for the Nevada Arts Council. I work with my counterpart who's based in our Las Vegas office, and we advocate for K-12 arts education and lifelong learning for all Nevada citizens.
That's fantastic. When did you know that you liked art? How old were you?
Well, I would say art has been always a part of my life. I think at the age of 3 or 4, I started showing interest in art and mostly drawing. I started drawing and creating my own stories. And my early drawings were in comic style because they were kind of narrating a story. So I would watch a cartoon and I would go back to my own space and start to, drawing what I saw and mostly twisting the stories that I learned about. And so that was how I kind of started showing interest in art. I think it was in 6th grade that I created my own comic book. It was the story that I developed and illustrated it, and became very famous in my school actually. So other students would come to my classroom and ask for the new pages. So I think it's fair to say that I always knew the art would be my path. I think I was in middle school. My parents signed me up for an oil painting class, and it was a really big influence for me, and I learned a lot of techniques in oil painting and drawing. And then after high school, I got accepted to the Art University of Tehran, which is a leading university for art in Iran. And then I had a chance to work with some incredible artists. I think these experiences really shaped my practice and pushed me to think critically about my work. And after I graduated with my bachelor's, I moved to the United States to pursue my MFA at the University of Nevada, Reno.
And how did you pick UNR?
So it has a amazing story, actually. So I was looking up MFA programs, and at the time I was already in a master's program that was a scholarship that I got from the same university to get my master's in painting. But it wasn't enough. I wanted kind of more. So I was looking into the master programs in the United States, and I came across the work of Mia Hannan. She ended up being my advisor for my master's program. But I really loved what she does and the way she incorporates her drawings into more sculptural pieces and the interdisciplinary approach that she has. So it was really inspiring for me, and I started by emailing simply, and I really liked the program after I basically came across Mia first, and then I started researching about the program, and I really liked how interdisciplinary the program is at UNR. It offers studio space, like full-time access to your studio as a MFA student. So, and that's the story why I chose UNR.
Well, I mean, that had to be quite exciting and maybe scary at the same time. You were going, halfway around the world.
Yeah. My first interview with the selection committee, it was like 11 at night in my time.
Oh.
And a very bad internet connection, because that's how it is in Iran. And I was just super stressed, It was, but yeah, it's been an incredible experience in my life, moving here to United States for my grad degree. And yeah.
I'm still thinking about you developing this comic book in grade school. That had to be so motivating to you as an artist to have the kids wanting the newest comic from you.
Yeah, it was actually the main source of motivation for me, because I think it was after I finished one volume, I was like, okay, I'm done. But then my peers was just keep coming and just asking.
You mean your fans?
Well, I don't know about fans, but they were fan of the story and the characters, because I created those characters. They were like tiny, like stick, kind of between human anatomy and like this, like those thick people that we all draw. So they were like kind of in between those. And I actually have them still, but they're back in Iran. So I should ask my family to start thinking of shipping them here so I can revisit them and maybe do something with them. But yeah, they were definitely the fan of the characters. But yeah, they just kept coming, and that was the main source of motivation for me to keep drawing them and making stories.
You got to get copies of them now.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually, for one of my projects in my bachelor, I did a project with my childhood drawings, because my mom keeps them, and most of them. So I made copies of the drawings I did and did a very cool project with it. It was a lot of fun. I think that's something I really want to do again, with this perspective that I have right now. So
I found it interesting, and you said earlier on you talked about storytelling, and I think that storytelling is probably the oldest form of art. So you did your storytelling with visual art. Some people do their storytelling, like we just interviewed Amy Hale from the Cowboy Poetry, and she does her storytelling audio. So, and I imagine people can do storytelling with music. So I just think that's very interesting that, you were, besides the art, you were telling stories with your art.
Yeah, and that's, as an Iranian person, storytelling has a deep root in my culture. And one of my main source of inspiration, is the poetry and the folklore that I grew up with. So always has been part of my life to listen to stories and see illustrations of it, as you can see in Persian miniatures and Persian book art, even other forms of art that has been practiced in Iran, like carpet weaving. Most of the patterns tell a story. They carry symbolism that is integral part of storytelling. So,
what mediums do you prefer to work with?
I'm coming from drawing and painting background, so it's the 2D medium. That 2D medium is near and dear to my heart. But after starting my graduate school, I started to rethink about my process and my medium. My primary medium right now is collage, because it enables me to bring all these mediums that I'm inspired by and I want to work with. I've done textile, I've done, of course, drawing and painting, and I did installation, and I experimented with video, but I think collage is a landing place for all these mediums that I like to incorporate to my works. Yeah, I think it's fair to say that I'm a collage artist, and I really like to, these days I really like to experiment with textile art and fabric and bringing that to my work, incorporating some drawings, paper drawings, and so it's just, I'm experimenting with this to kind of find a place that I can have both drawing and fiber art visually like connecting them together. So,
the other thing and I don't want to read this whole thing, but I think it's really beautiful is that you said, in my opinion, being an artist requires observing life as an artistic experience. And you talk about every encounter in daily life as a potential artistic concept. Every decision, every conversation, every aspect of daily life, it becomes inspiration. Do you want to talk about maybe pick one out of that inspired you for an art piece that you really like?
Sure, yeah. So, as you mentioned, that's how I view what being an artist is like. And you just have to, because, it doesn't, at least for me, it's not like I go to my studio space and all of a sudden like an idea comes to my mind. It doesn't work like that for me. I just have to be viewing life as an artistic experience. So with that perspective, I am keeping the door open for inspirations and ideas and all the time. And so one example is my move to United States. When I started grad school, I had to have a show. I think it was 2-3 months after my arrival. And I didn't bring my artwork with me because I was working on huge canvases when I was back in Iran. So I didn't bring any of that. So I had to be creating. I had to create a body of work so I could showcase it in that exhibition.
And you only had 2 or 3 months from the time you got off the plane?
Yes.
Holy moly.
Yeah, it was. Well, that was, you would think it's a huge challenge, but that actually made me, it was a challenge, but I kind of channeled it into my practice, and I created a few of my most favorite drawings that I ever created. I created, I think 2 or 3 self-portraits, and while making those, I was thinking about this experience of the move and what does that mean to me, and how it's shaping my perspective on what home means. And so I was thinking of all these and making those pieces, and they are so close to me that I never could convince myself to sell them or send them too far away. So they've always been on my studio wall, and wherever I go I just take them. And when I am facing creative blocks, I look at those and I think to myself, okay, I made these in the hardest time of my life, so that means that I can always do it again. So if I'm in a hard time, or if I'm encountering something that's challenging. So yeah, that's those self-portraits tell the story of that period of time for me, that I kind of channeled my life experience into those pieces.
What a great idea.
Yeah, it's been working for me.
How do you hope your audience interprets and connects with your work?
I hope they connect to my work on a deeply emotional and personal level. I think I aim to create this space where people can reflect on their own experiences and kind of review their own life and their own life stories through the stories that I share. I believe every individual story matters, and I am one individual, and I'm telling my story, and I hope that I inspire my audiences to think about their own stories and the ways that they can express their own narratives.
You wrote that storytelling is at the heart of your art, which you have mentioned, but you also said that it serves as a vehicle to amplify unheard voices and overlooked narratives. And then you talk a little bit about your personal reflections with the broader ongoing struggle of the Iranian people for freedom and democracy.
Yes, that's correct. And I think as an artist, that's kind of the responsibility that I feel on my shoulder, is to keep telling these narratives of the struggles of a nation who is fighting every day for a democratic Iran, the way it was actually before this darkness took over 46 years ago. I think as an artist, I think it's one of the biggest drive for my art is to, keep telling these stories and involve my own story growing up in Iran and encountering a lot of things. So, and also looking back at this history of the country, that for thousands of years the country, people have been living in that region, and Persian history shows that light will and shall prevail the darkness. So I think that's kind of where I'm going with my art. And I just want to be part of this history. And as we all know, history is always recording itself, and it's just recording. And I just want to be part of that, and my art be part of that.
And the visual artists are so important to telling the stories and the history of certain people or groups of people. What challenges have you faced as an artist, and have they helped shape your growth?
Well, I would say sometimes finding motivation during difficult times is a big challenge, and that's why I have those drawings always near to me. But I believe the growth often happens from facing a challenge. I think it's fair for me to say that my art has always evolved through these challenges, and I use my art as a platform to channel my frustrations and navigate through the hard moments. Sometimes during these times, my art becomes more impactful, more powerful, and it pushes me to explore new depths, new avenues of expression. So sometimes challenges can be actually serving as inspirations of how you navigate that, because life goes on, and you just, you can't just give up, and you just have to keep going and find your way of facing the challenges and defeating them.
And along that lines, what advice do you have for aspiring artists?
I think my advice is to never stop creating. It's just simple. Just keep making, and even when you're not feeling very inspired, or when you're even tired of the medium that you're using, but just keep making something and make that regular, whether it's daily or weekly based on your schedule. Just make it a regular habit. Sometimes you might not be happy with what you create, but trusting the process always works, and it's a valuable thing. I believe consistency is the key. Sometimes the pieces you don't love can inspire and speak ideas for your future work. I think it's important to remember you don't have to show everything you create and make to people, but just building a routine helps. It can really keep you grounded and moving forward in your art. So I think that is my advice.
Sounds like good advice.
Yeah, very good advice. So going back, Iran is a very old country. Okay, and I assume there's quite the art heritage there. You had mentioned ancient artifact paintings and monumental carvings in, and forgive me if I butcher this, Persepolis?
Yes.
Do you want to talk about Persepolis a little bit?
Well, yeah, it's a great historical monument that dates back to thousands of years ago. I visited that site multiple times. It's pretty inspiring, like when you are as a human walking on the, that site that was a cradle of civilization at the time. So for me, it's very inspiring to look at those carvings on the wall, and they are narrating stories of the events that happened there, the rituals, and the people that visited that site. And the interpretations of the carvings showed a very diverse group of people. Like they would go and visit. That kind of speaks to the diversity of the land of Persia and how people lived next to each other in peace. And actually Cyrus the Great is the writer of what we know as the first human right rules. And so it's very inspirational. It's a source of inspiration for me. What I really look into as another source of inspiration that is part of my culture and is part of the storytelling traditions in Iran is the book of Shahnameh, which was written by Ferdowsi between 977 to 1010 CE. And so it took him around 33 years to complete this monumental epic. And it has over or about 50,000 rhymic couplets. This book recounts the mythical and historical past of Iran from the creation of the world up to the Islamic conquest. And it's a very important book for us because it it has always been playing a crucial role in preserving the Persian language and the cultural and collective identity of Iran after the Arab conquest of the country. So I always look into that book because it's a mix of history and mythical creatures and just blends them all. I mean, he spent over 30 years of his life creating this book, so how it cannot be a great resource for, for finding inspiration. But yeah, it's another thing that I, as an artist and as an Iranian artist, I find a huge source of inspiration. It's just a great book, and I'm just lucky to be able to read it, in the language that it is created.
What language is that?
It's Persian.
Persian, okay.
And his effort was to preserve the language because after the Islamic conquest, for almost 200 years, it was banned to speak in Persian and was forced to speak in, Arabic. And what I find really inspiring is that the culture finds its way to survive. So you can't really, it just goes on. And especially for an ancient culture like the Persian culture, it has always shown that light will prevail the darkness. So that's the same story for the culture.
Yeah, and I guess that's a worldwide problem or challenge because Linda, we were talking to Henry Reelbird 2 weeks ago at the Cowboy Poetry, and there's to keep the Native American languages going. I think that's a struggle as well.
Yeah, and I think artists are the cultural barriers, and they are the cultural barriers, and they contribute to keeping a culture alive. I think that's how I view myself as an artist. And as I said, I think it's my responsibility to keep telling the stories of the contemporary time and be part of the history that's going to be, we are living in history. And thousands of years from now, I just want to have this contribution that, I told stories and I incorporated narratives in my work that were worth telling. So I think the artists really play an important role in preserving the culture and the stories of the past.
So one of the questions I never ask, but I'm going to ask it today, is how this place fit into your creativity. And I really want to know that because your place was interrupted, and now you're in a new place.
I think it has for me overall, it has been having a positive impact on my work because, moving is hard. Even moving from a house to a different house, like a couple blocks away, is hard. But I think it really depends on one's perspective of how to embrace it. I think I embraced it very well and I handled it very well in my work. It gave me a perspective, a unique perspective that I didn't have and I wouldn't have, if I stayed in my city, and it made me look at my home country from a new perspective of from outside perspective. For example, I never liked the art of carpet weaving because I was so surrounded by it. It was just everywhere. So I never actually thought what it goes to, weaving a carpet. I was never interested in it. I didn't want to know, actually. I was more interested in the contemporary art that is practiced in the Western countries. But when I moved and when I was not surrounded by it and I felt the void and I felt that I need to know more about it because it was part of my identity, it was part of my experience. I started looking at it and I found amazing things that go to the art of weaving a carpet. I actually grounded my thesis paper on that. I looked into carpet weaving from a study point of view, and I interviewed a few carpet weavers, and I went to their places and witnessed them weaving. So I wouldn't never do any of this if it wasn't because of the move. I think embracing it and just being mindful of it is really important to me. I think that it can go, either ways. You can become miserable. But I think it's being miserable is also part of the path. I think I got over it quickly, fairly, and I started to kind of dissecting the experience of what it means to be placed in a different environment. So the cultural shock and all of that was part of my experience, but I used it as a as an encounter that inspired me.
Are there other Iranian artists up by you now?
Well, I have had experience of working with some great Iranian artists, but someone who always had influence on me is actually an artist he lived through 15th and 16th century, so he's not alive, but his work has always inspired me. His name is Behzad, and he's a master of Persian miniature, and I'm just so amazed by the details he put into his work. But I can't think of a contemporary Iranian artist that I can confidently say that I got inspired by. But as I mentioned before, I keep myself open to new ideas and inspirations, and I sometimes when I'm looking at the art that other Iranian artists create, I find some inspirations in technique or in presentation of the art. One of my friends, he's a very successful Iranian artist. His name is Fashido, and I am very inspired by the way he arranges his collages. But I think in concepts, we are kind of, on a different, we are not on the same path with the concept that we put into our works. But yeah, I find
that would be boring, wouldn't it, if you're on the same path?
Exactly. Yeah, so that's why I always try to updating artist statement is one of the thing that is not as fun as the making part, but I think I make myself committed to keep it updated to reflect my most recent thoughts and concepts. So I think it's really important to just have the artistic practice grow as we grow and as we experience life. So I think it's a living, breathing creature.
But you're part of an artistic community, correct, up in Reno?
Yes.
And how's that impacted your journey? Or are you part of an artistic community online now? Because everybody does that as well.
Yeah, I think, I have to say that I am I should be a little bit better at keeping my online presence and portfolio. I would say I'm not the best at it, but I think, so your question was...
Well, my question basically is how important is being part of an artistic community to you, and how has it impacted your journey?
I think it's very important to be part of the community because it's always inspiring to see what other peers are doing, the way that they navigate their artistic practice. And I think we are social beings as humans, and we thrive in communities. So I think it's essential for my growth as an artist to be part of the artistic community. I don't think it's just about being involved and making contribution. I think it's being involved is one part of it, but also making contributions and helping to shape a broader and more dynamic art world is very important for me. I think it kind of creates a sense of connection and a sense of belonging, which is very important for me as an artist. And I just don't want to be operating as an individual artist, away from the artistic community and the community. So I think the ongoing conversation and exchanging of ideas, I find it very influential and inspiring. And I think, that's why it's very important for me to be part of the artistic community.
And can I steer towards your job, which your job is Arts Learning Specialist for Nevada Arts Council. And you do that for K through 12, arts education, and lifelong learning. So I was going to ask you about the most exciting time you've had advocating art for younger children.
Well, yeah, I think that's actually a part in my job that excites me the most, to advocate for K through 12 arts learning. I think the most recent example that I can, use for answering this question is attending Washoe County's Poetry Out Loud semi-final and seeing all these students reciting poetry and in the competition, the work they put into it, and the way that they recited and presented their poems. It was just very rewarding for me. I actually got very emotional to see that, and I think I can. That was just the most recent experience I had, and it was actually last week. So, but I think seeing them kind of channeling their emotions and feelings into the spoken word was something that stood out to me. Just emphasized for me the fact that arts education, especially in early stages of life, is very important. It enhances their critical thinking, creativity, and problem-solving skills, and it's just something that actually excited me the most when I started the job.
Yeah, I saw that on social media, and I guess they're having the state finals soon.
Yes. And
I'm so jealous. Somebody said, was I going to come up? And I'm like, well, the Art Box Learjet right now is down for maintenance, so I don't think...
Yeah, it's going to be in Reno. It's going to be at UNR and Jokerly City Union Theater on March 15th, and it's open to public. So, and I've been telling people to, if they can, attend, because it's a very great opportunity to see all these students getting up on the stage and engage with poetry in a way that they do, and it's just a very rewarding feeling.
And one more question from me. I noticed that part of your job is also lifelong learning for all Nevada citizens. And a couple of weeks ago, I got an opportunity to go help with some art stuff in assisted living. And I found it brought so many smiles, and they were so happy. And I think the art was important, but I think even more important, even for me, was just talking to those people. So what does Nevada Arts do for the older citizens?
Yeah, so we do have programs that engage senior citizens, and actually engaging this population has shown to significantly enhance their health and well-being and their social connections. So a study was done by Dr. Cohen that examined the effects of professionally led cultural programs on adults aged 65 and older. And the study found that the participants involved in weekly art programs experienced improved health, enhanced mental health, and increased social engagement. That means that they reported better overall health, fewer doctor visits, and reduced medication use, and also decreased feelings of loneliness and depression, and a sense of connection and community, and reduce feelings of social isolation. So this research is very important for me as an advocate for arts education and lifelong learning. Actually, further researches were done, and the research was done by National Institute on Aging. That research supported these findings of the impact of arts engagement for the senior population. So we know that it can improve their cognitive function and independence when engaged with the arts. So in Nevada Arts Council, we have programs that are the title is Creative Aging. So we partner with a national partner. We provide professional development sessions for our teaching artists to professionally train them so they can go to the community and have classes to engage the senior population. And as of 2023, the census data indicates that approximately, I think, 17.4% of Nevada population is aged 65 and older. So, and this shows a significant increase from previous years. The projection indicates continued growth in the senior demographic in Nevada. So it becomes more important than ever to incorporate creative practices into the lives of the older adults. I think what we do through these initiatives, it enriches the personal experience for this population and also contributes to the healthier and more connected community. We are also looking into creating creative programs for the veteran community, engage them in the arts, and looking into what practices have been done and what researches have been done, so to create meaningful and impactful programs for that population also.
Wow, I had no idea Nevada Arts was that involved there. That's quite inspiring.
Yeah, this is a form of professional development that we provide for our teaching artists. It's a great skill that they learn and they can give back to the community by the programmings that they do for the senior population in Nevada. We actually have a teaching artist roster, and we are revamping it, so it's going to be more dynamic, more searchable. But those artists on the teaching artist roster who have been trained to work with the senior population, they will have a badge, and they are actually kind of dispersed around the state, and most of them are willing to travel for having these programmings and residencies in urban and rural communities. So it's going to be a little bit more easier to connect to those artists who have that badge so they can have classes and creative experiences for the senior population. They're actually from very diverse disciplines, from literary art to visual arts and performance. So they kind of channel their experience in their discipline into the work that they do for the senior citizens.
Right.
Oh, great. Do you have anything else you'd like to talk about, Sogand?
I just like to thank you for the Artbox podcast, the effort you put into it to reflect on the dynamic and diverse art scene in Nevada. And I listen to you guys when I'm creating. It's been really fun, and it gives me, I think it's double learning when I'm creating and listening to you guys. I'm learning a lot about the, up-to-date news in Nevada. So thank you for
Thank you. There's so many artists, and everybody's got a story, and every artist is different. I love our job, even though we don't get paid, but I love our job.
Yeah.
So what's inspired you this past week?
I think maybe a couple things, but one that stands out was actually talking to my grandmother. And she loves telling stories, and that's what she does. Just call her, she starts telling her life stories, and then she just goes on and tells some folklore from the time that she was a child. So I actually had a long call with her. She was telling some stories about, seasons change and all that in Iran, and which are part of the rich folklore of that country. And it was really inspiring for me, and I actually thought about doing a project of, recording her stories and preserving them and do something with them. I don't know what exactly, but I'm just very inspired to find a way to preserve all these stories that she knows and she carries. It was, I think, the main thing that I can think of that inspired me.
Yeah, that's
wonderful.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So you should.
Has a lot of the stories.
Yeah, you maybe should do that.
Yeah. I actually thought about ways of presenting these stories because again, most of them are folklore and they're so woven into the fabric of the culture. So I was thinking of what I can do to maybe translate them, but also add another element to it so it's more relevant. So it's just a new idea that just came to my mind this past few days. But
that's great.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and you'll love that forever because the stories will live on with you. Way past your grandmom. So and that's so heartening to hear her voice. Every now and then there'd be something where we've got a recording of my dad, and it's like, oh my God, it's so great. So I want to cry, but then I want to smile too. So
yeah, and that's the worst. It's very worth putting a time and preserving these because this is a wealth of life experience that the older adults carry, and I think it's very important to find a way for these stories to keep living. Yeah.
Well, if you ever want to interview your grandmom and have us put it as a podcast episode, we've actually got one podcast episode that was in Spanish. We would love to do another one in another language.
Wow. Yeah, that's actually a great idea.
Because we do have listeners in Iran. I don't know who they are, but we have listeners in Iran.
Sogand, Thank you for spending time with us today. This was a great interview. We appreciate your contribution to the art world.
Thank you so much for your time and considering me.
Yes, thank you. Bye.
Broadcasting from the Mesquite Works Steam Center in the scenic Mojave Desert, the Art Box sponsors thank you for listening. You can find us on Spotify, Samsung, iHeartRadio, Podchaser, and Amazon Music. Please subscribe so you don't miss an episode. We are on Facebook and Instagram as The Art Box. We welcome all comments. You can email us at artboxvv@gmail.com. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of its hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect those of our sponsors.